Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now if you collect He-Man and the Masters of the Universe figures, you'll know that one of the common problems with these figures is that the little clasp that holds the armour on the back of a lot of these figures tends to snap. It consists of a little sort of grommet bit that goes inside a hoop here, and the hoop tends to snap either at this sort of top section, as you can see it has done on this one, or somewhere along the back. So when you try and put the armour in place and sort of hold it onto He-Man, it just sort of pings open and the armour goes all sort of baggy and it just looks a bit rubbish. So today I'm going to show you a quick way of doing a little fix to this to make sure that this armour holds together. Now there's no way of actually gluing these little hoops and repairing them because there's really not that much plastic there, and whatever you do tends to be put under a little bit of sort of outwards force because of the way these clasps work. You sort of push them on and it's supposed to grip over the little button bit there, but the force is always pushing apart or pulling apart the two snapped edges, so it will always break again. So the way I'm going to fix this is to sort of add an extra little bit to this to just help hold this apart. So on the little button part here, what we need to do is actually make a hole through that. So I'm going to use a little pin vise that I have here, and it has a 1mm drill bit in it, so a very small drill bit, and we should be able to, if I just hold that, and I'm going to carefully drill into one side, and I should be able to go all the way through, as you can see there. So I've now gone through, and we now have a 1mm hole through that little tab. So you can see there, 1mm hole, and that's what we're going to use to sort of attach these two sections together. Through this new hole that we've made, I'm going to thread some of this elastic. Now this is the sort of thinnest elastic you can buy. It's again only about a sort of millimetre in diameter, and it's incredibly cheap. This whole roll, which I think is about 20 meters, cost me 99p. So I'm just going to cut off a length of that like so, and then I'm going to use a little bit of beading wire here because that's the easiest way of threading this stuff through. So I've made a sort of U-shaped loop, and I'm going to put the elastic into the end of that, as you can see, and I can now thread that through the tiny hole that we've made in the back part of He-Man's armour. So I just push that through, and then you can see I've threaded that little bit of elastic. We can take the wire off, and we now have a piece of elastic, if I just pull the other end through, threaded through the new hole that we've made. Now that we have the elastic threaded through, we can actually start to sort of tie these two pieces together, which is the only way that I've found to get this to work. So I'm going to thread and make a little bit of a knot just to start on, so that we've got a bit of a loop going there. So you can see that I've got it sort of partially tied, and I'm then going to sort of push that over the top of the original hoop and start pulling this together. Now you have to do this quite slowly because what you want to do is sort of tie these two bits together, and you don't want it to sort of unping while you're doing it. So you can see if I've pulled that quite taut, it's now sort of pulled the two sections together, and if I keep my finger on one of these, I should be able to tie the second part of a knot. Like so, and then pull that taut, and you'll see that the clasp is now nice and neatly held together, and you've just got a little bit of elastic on this side which we can sort of rotate around and then trim the ends off. Now the reason I've done this with elastic is because it makes it much easier to sort of undo and redo if you want to take the armour on and off this figure. If you do it with some string or cotton, you can even do it with a bit of wire, it just becomes a little bit more awkward to undo, but as you can see, this is now held quite nicely and firmly, and the armour is much sort of better fitting on the front of He-Man. It's sort of held in place. So if I just trim off these little bits of elastic, I'll show you what the final thing looks like. So I'm actually going to just use a pair of plastic nippers to trim these because I don't have my scissors to hand. The plastic nippers will do the job. So I can just trim that like that. And I should be able to sort of carefully rotate the bit of elastic around so that it sort of sits more behind, or the knot sits more behind the armour. But you can see there, that armour is now held sort of firmly together, and it does look like it sort of fits him a lot better. And here's the final figure with the armour back in place. Although this isn't a perfect fix, it certainly does make the figure much more displayable. There's no real way of fixing that properly just because it's so thin. All the little bits of plastic are so tiny and everything is just under a little bit too much force and is liable to unstick if you glue it. So this sort of method is the best way I've found to make this armour look perfectly acceptable to go back on display. And as you can see, if you look at He-Man from the front, if you didn't know it was broken on the back, it certainly looks fine. And really, at a sort of quick glance, you can't even tell there's a bit of elastic there holding the whole thing together. So there you go, that's my quick fix guide for how to repair the armour on a vintage He-Man and the Masters of the Universe figure. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.